Hey, welcome back to the Schomburg Show. As you can see on the screen with me, we have a guest today. I'm happy to have him back on. Now, we've had him before, Adam Andrzejewski. He's with openthebooks.com. Adam, welcome back.
Well, great to be on the program, Sean. Thank you very much for your interest in our work.
Yeah, just so the listeners know, the reason we have Adam on is because he is a badass. That's the main reason. He has come forward with an organization that basically exposes what these government entities are spending of our tax money. And some of I want to have him talk about it a little bit more today, but some of the things that have happened is now that, let's see, what was the last budget from Trump's organization? They cited you guys, which was amazing. And I think we've had another citation. So I want to get into that with you. But just for the listeners know, Adam has this organization that goes out and exposes what people spend. And I'm in fact, tell us, because I'm butchering the heck out of this, Adam. What is it? You tell us, because you're better at it. What is it that you guys do? Give us a little background so people know who they're talking to.
So our mission, quite simply, can be summarized in one phrase: every dime online in real time. We open the books and then we audit those books. And Sean, the audits, as you know, make national news. So last year, our team filed 41,000 Freedom of Information Act requests on nearly every single substantial public body in the entire country. We've built the world's largest private database of public sector expenditures. And then on all that open data, we try to put eyeballs on it. And the audits that we do end up hopefully making national news stories.
Well, in the end, your purpose is to get people to be able to see this. You want transparency. You want to expose what it is, because it's publicly spent money. It's our tax money in all cases. So this is really the right of the people to be able to see these expenditures, correct?
And it's in the Constitution. So our founders recognized that knowledge is power. They wrote the power of transparency to be able to have we the people hold the powerful political class accountable for tax and spend decisions. They wrote it into Article 1, Section 9 of the United States Constitution, Clause 7, and it says that a regular statement and account of the receipts and expenditures of all public money shall be published from time to time. And Sean, not enough has been done with that transparency clause.
Right.
And our organization is at the forefront of using transparency to hold the politicians accountable, the politicians in both parties.
It's nonpartisan, of course. You're just publishing the information so that people can see it. But it also goes to the state level. And does it go to the city level as well?
We do, right. So in our database, you can actually see virtually everybody, all public employees, their salary and pension records from every single unit of government, federal, state, and local across the entire country.
So if you want to know who the local politician or local this or that, what they're making, you can go online to Adam's site, and it's openthebooks.com. Is that right?
Right. So if you're in New York City, you can take a look at the school janitors. And Sean, you'll find that the school janitors in the New York City public schools are out earning the principals. The janitors are making up to $200,000 a year. The principals make $135,000 a year. And across the entire country, you can do that analysis where you live, where your kids go to school, the public bodies that you pay taxes to. You can see how they're spending your tax dollars, and you, the taxpayer everywhere across the country, can follow the money.
I love it. I love it so much, Adam. I don't know what to say. I just think it's so bloody fantastic. Now, we talk about the Constitution and the fact that the framers said we need to, be transparent. And I think the First Amendment with the freedom of the press was part of that at the time. We need to be, that's kind of the transparency for the government. But also, Freedom of Information Act came along, and we've had the Edgar County watchdog badasses on this show, and you're the one that connected us to them. You're the one that said, no, you got to talk to these guys because they're it, and they are it. I got to tell you, I love those guys too much. I just listened to the show again the other day, and it makes me feel good. what they're doing. So they used the Freedom of Information Act. Just give us a snippet so people understand, because I don't think a lot of people understand, number one, what it is and the power of what this act is.
So I think what everybody watching the program here today has to remember is that we paid for government spending. We, the citizen, we own those public records, those government records. We already own it. What the Freedom of Information Act does is it gives us a statutory and lawful process to simply take possession of records that we, the people, already own. So when a government wants to charge you a fee, no, that's a tax. You've already paid for that record to be created. You've already paid for all of that spending to go out the door. We're just simply trying to review it. The Freedom of Information Act is a powerful act that puts the power rightfully where it's supposed to be, and that's in the hands of citizens. We're supposed to be able to hold our public officials accountable for their tax and spend decisions, and that's the act that gives us the power to hold them accountable.
And from what the guys, now just anybody listening, Edgar County Watchdogs, if you go to schomburg.net, the show is on there. It wasn't videotaped, it's audio. But these guys, if you look under, I think I pointed out 2 guys armed with the truth caused 400 officials to flee. These guys are saying it's very easy to get information from your local community, at least in Illinois where they're at. They just write an email and said, okay, I want the minutes. In fact, he said, I asked for 10 years of minutes from a certain committee, and they have to send it to you within 5 days or there's a penalty. I mean, it seems really simple to use this act.
It's pretty simple to use it, and people need to remember what our rights are in the system, or we're going to lose those rights if we don't exercise those rights. So the Edgar County Watchdogs, they're real heroes. They're regular guys. I mean, Kirk Allen and John Kraft, they're just like Sean Burke or Adam Andrzejewski or anybody listening to the program. Yeah. But they decided that they've had enough, and they're not going to let their public officials in their own county or anywhere across the state of Illinois run roughshod over the people.
Yep.
They reorient the proper relationship between a public official and the people. The people are in charge. They work for us, and oftentimes our politicians have forgotten that.
It's true. I've tried to remind listeners constantly, it's our Constitution, it's our country, and really in the end, it's up to us to step forward and run it. Otherwise, someone else is going to do it, and probably not the way we want it. So if you want to have something different, you need to step in and do something, and it's what you've done, Adam. I know that you had a successful business before, and you stepped up into this and put this forward. I just think it's fantastic. And I just love that those guys, just armed with some minutes and some few things that they've pulled, that 400 officials have run away from their offices. It cracks me up. When I need to feel better, I just listen to that show. Again, that's at schomburg.net. If you want to email me any comments, it's heyshawn@schomburg.net. And of course, you can get a hold of Adam at openthebooks.com. So let's get to what we were talking about. We have more money than ever was conceived of in the history of life being printed in Washington, and it is being pushed out to all sorts of areas in the country. And you guys are the guys we turn to go, all right, what are you seeing? Because it's one thing to help prop everything up. There's a whole conversation about, are we going to survive just printing money endlessly? That's a whole nother conversation. But you're the guys who are the ones to look around and go, where is this money going? And what is this really as taxpayers where we want it to go? So can you give us some thoughts of, this is a new era. Last time I talked to you, I don't think we had even started COVID. It was a couple of months ago at least. Now we're in a whole new game. So give us some thoughts of what you guys are doing and what you're seeing.
So right now, I think the big question of the day up on Capitol Hill and in Washington, D.C. is this $3 trillion HEROES Act that passed the United States House of Representatives and now goes over to the Senate. Within that $3 trillion, and that comes on the heels of $3 trillion of coronavirus bailout funding that's already gone out the door. That money is starting to work its way through the economy, and it's a tremendous amount of money. It pushed our national debt, which I know you're very concerned about, Sean, up to $25 trillion from $22 trillion at the start of the year. This additional $3 trillion in the quote-unquote HEROES Act would push our national debt from $25 trillion to $28 trillion. So it's very important to understand what's in this bill. A big component of this bill, $500 billion, $500 billion, would go to bail out the 50 states. It's only half of what California Governor Gavin Newsom and other Western state governors asked for. They asked Nancy Pelosi and the U.S. House of Representatives for a $1 trillion 50-state bailout. But nonetheless, we have taken a look at how this money would be used in California and in the home state of OpenTheBooks.com, which is Illinois. So in Illinois, what we found was there's 110,000 local and state public employees that have a new minimum wage. That minimum wage is actually $100,000 a year. In Illinois, that's a lot of money. Our average household income is $64,000. So there's 110,000 Illinois public employees that make $100,000 or more. About 85,000 of those employees are currently working, and 25,000 of those are actually retired on a six-figure public pension. So you have tree trimmers in Chicago making up to $108,000. You've got nurses in our state correction system making up to almost $300,000. Wow. You've got a husband and wife power couple at a small junior college in Illinois cleaning off $750,000 collectively. You've got doctors in the University of Illinois system at Chicago making up to $2 million. You've got 111 city managers in small towns across Illinois out earning every governor of the 50 states, and that threshold salary is $202,000.
Do you think they just hide? I mean, they're just like, let's just stay quiet. No one's ever going to know about this, because some of these figures are outrageous. And also what happens with pensions is once you have something that high, your pension numbers then go up, so that when you retire for the rest of your life, you have this much higher figure.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the pensions, because just in Illinois K through 12 education, there are now 6 retired superintendents that are out on $300,000 of annual pension for the rest of their lives. And I want to talk about one of them. So last year, the all-time most highly compensated educator in Illinois, he was the superintendent of Calumet City Schools. It was an elementary school district, less than 1,000 kids, no high schools, couldn't even get the school opened on time because there was a mold problem. This superintendent was making $407,000 a year. Well, he was getting ready to retire, and we filed some Freedom of Information Act requests, and we thought he was going to ask the school for a parting check to cover his unused vacation days, holidays, and sick days. We thought he was going to ask for $500,000. Well, unbeknownst to us, he asked the school board for $1.75 million. And so when we brought this up, they fired him. So now he's retired on a $303,000 a year pension for the rest of his life.
He got fired, but yet he has $303,000 for the rest of his life. Man, Adam, where do I get that job? That's amazing. So, I mean, and the sad part is this isn't made up. This is real stuff.
Here's another educator. He was actually a finance administrator at Schaumburg School District 54. So he retired as a finance administrator on a teacher pension of nearly $300,000 a year. But he wasn't finished with his career within the Illinois public schools. He was actually hired by my elementary school district over here in Hinsdale on a salary of $200,000. So how can you get an educator pension and get rehired by the schools? He's collecting $500,000 a year because he went back through a different pension system. He went back through the municipal pension system on his new salary. And since he's not in the classroom, he can do that. He's collecting $500,000 a year by double dipping the system.
That's amazing. You know, the pension system is a whole nother story. The pensions in the U.S. are in big trouble because of these kind of things. There's a lot of problems in California where I'm more familiar with people jacking up their rates to the point that they are for the rest of your lives, just like you're saying, 300, 400, 500,000 a year. And they can't sustain. We're going to run into a pension problem here in the U.S. very soon.
and it's unsustainable. I'm glad you brought it up, Sean. We did a unique calculation for Illinois. Here's what we found, that Illinois has probably already crossed the Rubicon. Don't take good money in the other states and throw it after bad Illinois fiscal policy. We found that Moody's found the unfunded pension liability in Illinois is $250 billion. And we did the calculations per person. It's $19,000 per man, woman, and child. If you're a family of 4, your share of the Illinois unfunded pension liability is $76,000. And the average household income in Illinois is only $64,000. Just to fund the pensions properly would take more than the annual income of the average family in Illinois. It's gone. It's not sustainable. No. Nobody has a plan to bring it back. No. Don't throw your good money into our horribly and poorly and badly mismanaged state.
And in the end, what will happen is these will either go bankrupt or they'll have to scale back all these big pensions, or there's going to be some problems. So people out there living on the $300,000 or $400,000, stash some away because it may be coming back.
So let's talk about California. So California right now faces a $54 billion state budget deficit. The pension hawks will tell you that the unfunded pension liability in California is $1 trillion. So of course they want a federal bailout, but California, to their credit, the governor is taking a different tack. You don't see this in Illinois. You don't see this in the state of New York with Governor Cuomo. Governor Newsom is slashing 10% from the salaries in state government, and he's asked the agencies to cut 5% from their budget. Now that's a good development because California has a rainy day fund of $20 billion. And if you cut salaries and if you cut your budget, California could actually solve their own problems. They don't need the United States taxpayer to bail them out.
Yeah, that is good. Good. So now how does this new bill or the bill that went before, I know we're talking about the states, we're talking about the people that are making the money, we're talking about the pensions. Does this have to do with these bills that just the CARES Act and also the one that's coming forward?
No, I mean, what we're doing is we're just showing how bad it is, how horribly mismanaged these states have been. And the governor has actually admitted that if Congress bails out California, the budget cuts go away. So Sean, what that means is that the governor in California is counting on the taxpayer from around the country to help fund the 340,000 six-figure public employees in the state of California so they don't get a haircut. They're counting on you to throw your money in so they can keep making the big bucks.
Yeah, it's when you think about the fact when federal money goes out, it goes out to California or wherever else, all the other states are paying for that. I mean, we don't always think about that. Well, that Washington's giving Illinois money. Well, if Washington's giving Illinois money, it's everybody's money because that's what they're taking out of is the taxes that are coming in. And it's inequitable.
California every year spends about $320 billion on their state budget. And here's a point that most people don't know. We were talking about transparency at the start of this interview. And California has rejected for the last 5 years our Freedom of Information Act request for the state checkbook. And they're the only state that has rejected our request. We collect this information, oftentimes going back to 2006. From 49 out of the 50 states, California is the only one rejecting our request. So in January, we got serious and we sued Comptroller Betty Yee to begin the process of forcing open line-by-line expenditures in the state of California.
What's their reasoning for not giving you the money or giving you the data?
Well, incredibly, they've spent $1 billion on their accounting system, and Betty Yee is claiming, and this is a quote, they can't find any of the individual transactions. They can't find any of the millions of individual transactions that they paid $320 billion with last year.
Wow.
So, we just think that's ludicrous.
Yeah.
Obviously, California is the home of Silicon Valley.
Come on.
You get our auditors in their computer systems for about 5 minutes, and let me tell you, we're going to find a lot of things. I have a lot of questions. I mean, we were the organization last year. You remember we mapped the 140,000 cases in San Francisco of human waste in the public way over a 9-year period. And California has special taxes for mental health benefits for homeless people. I want to know if San Francisco is getting their fair share.
The fact that a state may not know the individual transactions, that's outrageous. It's like not keeping track. It's not even true. So it'd be interesting so we have the lawsuits filed, and we're just going through the process of getting this thing going.
Yes. So, and we've got a good history on this. California is the third state that we had to sue. We've never lost. We've never lost a state transparency legal fight. The first one was in 2012. We sued then Republican Comptroller Judy Bartopinka. 9 months later, she said famously, the state doesn't have a quote unquote magical checkbook. And I reminded Topinka that the state doesn't have magical taxpayers either. Well, 9 months later, we had forced open 6 years worth of line by line state spending.
What state is that? What state was
Illinois.
That? Illinois. Okay.
Yeah. And then last year in 2018, we sued then Republican state auditor in Wyoming, Cynthia Cloud. She said, quote, it would take years and years to produce a state checkbook. Well, it became one of the biggest issues in the state of Wyoming. She didn't run for re-election. A new state auditor came in. Within 30 days, she opened the books on 5 years worth of line-by-line state spending. That was
Wow.
Christy Racine's. And so, we're 2 for 2. I don't think California is going to produce. I think we're going to have to take this legal fight and get judgments, in circuit court, on appeal, and we're ready to fight it out with the state of California. We're ready to fight and win.
Is the federal law the one that controls this freedom of information? Is the Freedom of Information Act? It's a federal law. Does it then enforce this onto California, or do each states have their own laws for this?
Each state has their own law, but in California, look, this is settled law. State expenditures, vendor payments are a matter of public record, and we're going to enforce that law.
Yeah, I can't see how you have much stance if you're at the state level for that. The Edgar County guys making these people flee. Any stories like that you just talked about the Wyoming person that you sued didn't run again. You have any other stories like that of you finding the rats scurrying as you're releasing this information?
Yeah, absolutely. Right there in California, the city manager in Palm Springs, when I was preparing my piece this week for Forbes on the 340,000 six-figure public employees in California, one of the highest earners of city managers in California is right there in Palm Springs. So we reached out to him for comment, and he said he's cutting 20% of his salary. And some of his agency heads are going to cut 10% of theirs. And he's going to ask the public employees in Palm Springs to cut parts of their salary. This is encouraging developments. In Illinois, when we first went live with salaries and pensions for the first time ever, from virtually every single Illinois public employee at every level in the state, this was back in 2011 and 2012, we found that a school district treasurer's pay went from $165,000 up to $295,000 in a year. The
Wow.
citizens in his district knew that wasn't right, but that district was located in Cook County. That's the county of Chicago. And let me tell you, in Cook County, the state's attorney, she can't find public corruption anywhere. But even she found, eventually she indicted him. He served 8 years in the penitentiary.
Wow, that's a pretty good one. It'd be interesting, for these counties, especially on a local level. It's one thing, I've lived in big cities, so it's easy to sometimes ignore. You don't even get involved. It's such a big city, but you get these smaller towns where they're able to look at their local school district who's getting paid what. This has got to be really valuable to people who are in smaller, mid to size, smaller communities to understand who is taking the money out of the budget that they're trying to support in those communities.
Well, just right in my local area, our junior college here locally, it just happens to be the second largest college in Illinois. We did an oversight investigation starting in 2014 at this school, and we identified that the chief radio station engineer was trading, unbeknownst to the school, with his own company. And when we exposed this, and we exposed this at the Chicago Tribune in 2 front-page news articles, it led to his indictment. He pled guilty. He had to pay back $400,000 worth of restitution. He spent time in the penitentiary, and his state pension was canceled, which saved taxpayers about $80,000 a year.
Wow, I love this. The same thing the Edgar County guys do. You just start bringing up truth. You just keep bringing up real records, and you and the Edgar County guys are not going after anybody in particular. You're just like, look, just follow the law. You're public officials. We're trusting you with our tax money, and you're supposed to be running things for us, but they don't necessarily follow the law.
So like right now in California, amongst these 340,000 highly compensated public employees, one of them that out earns Governor Gavin Newsom, his salary is $202,000 a year. Sean, I kid you not, the head of the student union at UCLA makes $206,000 and out earns the governor of California.
Wow.
There are pensions from people that have retired, I guess, after a career of running the student union, and their pensions are $135,000 a year. Now, even in Illinois, they have not figured out how to monetize the student union on a college campus. But in California, they figured that out.
They figured it out. You're listening to... Yeah, that's pretty good. You're listening to Adam Andrzejewski. He is the man that started openthebooks.com, and you can go to that site and then look for your local state, maybe even your local city, and certainly federal. Different things, salaries and spending, expenditures, whatnot. You can go and take a look. One of the things that I've noticed in this latest, but not the money that the government just pushed out, I think in the CARES Act, there are people, if we're going to talk about crazy things happening, there are people making on unemployment double, triple what they actually were making when they were working. And now you have these businesses trying to open back up, calling their employees and saying, hey, we're opening, would you like to come back? And they're saying no. I know of someone just talked to me about that, a personal situation where they can't get the employees back because they're making so much unemployed.
Right, that's true. I mean, we've given a lot of oversight to the CARES Act. This was the act that passed at the end of March, 1st of April. It was $2.2 trillion worth of coronavirus aid and bailout money. Sean, one of the tranches of that aid went to America's colleges and universities. And we gave oversight at Forbes to how that money was allocated. It was $12.5 billion, and it was allocated to the 5,100 colleges and universities across the country. So just the top 20, we looked at the top 20 richest universities. These are the ones with the largest endowments. Collectively, those 20 schools have an endowment of $350 billion. And they were allocated nearly $1 billion worth of coronavirus bailout money. And that's obscene. These wealthy schools should not have their hand out for coronavirus bailout money. And you remember the president, he rightfully called out Harvard for that. And Harvard said they weren't going to apply for the funds. Princeton followed suit. So did Stanford. So did Notre Dame. However, we did reach out to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. MIT has a $13 billion endowment, and they responded to our request for comment saying that their trustees were going to consider it. They were going to think about it to see how it fits the mission of the school. And Sean, that's code. They're going to take the money with a $13 billion endowment.
Well, I know Harvard got it, and then they sent it back. So did MIT get it, and they haven't given it back? Is that where we're sitting?
The schools have to apply for it, so Harvard didn't apply. There was a little bit of confusion on that. But I believe MIT is going to apply and they're going to take the money.
Wow. All right. What else in the CARES Act? What have you found? Anything else?
Well, so here's how that act was pulled together. First off, Mitch McConnell, the Republican leader in the Senate, he proposed a 250-page bill. About 2 weeks later, Nancy Pelosi came back from California, went up to Capitol Hill, and she proposed a 1,400-page bill with about $3 trillion worth of spending. And they compromised nearly right in the middle. That what passed was a 900-page bill at $2.2 trillion. And if you remember, nobody voted against it. In the House, yep. Massey, the rep out of Kentucky, tried to battle it. He tried to battle the voice vote, the unanimous voice vote, but he failed in that. So it passed unanimously on voice vote. They didn't even show up to cast a vote in their own name. And it passed the Senate 96-0. So nobody even voted against this thing. The president signed it. And we found a lot of waste in that bill.
Any you want to highlight?
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows about the Kennedy Center. They got $25 million. There was $200 million that went to the National Endowment of the Arts and the agency that handles libraries across the country, which nearly doubled their budgets. So, wow. Sean, in the president's budget to Congress, we were cited on 2 reports. One of the reports was the one that we did on the National Endowment of the Arts and Humanities, because we found that they're not funding the starving artist, that these arts grants are going to well-heeled, asset-rich arts organizations across the country. In fact, 80 cents on every dollar of funding into arts programs go to an entity with over $1 million worth of assets. In fact, 70 organizations had over $1 billion worth of assets. And so, in the coronavirus bailout bill, they nearly doubled the budget for those agencies.
Doubled
the coronavirus.
Yeah, exactly. So when you say doubled, their budget is $1 million and they dollars a year, and they got $2 million or something like that. We're talking about that kind of doubling.
Yes.
It's a similar thing to these people that are unemployed. You double their, you make $4,000 a month and they get $8,000 in unemployment or whatever it is. So what else? Do you have any others?
I want you to know that at openthebooks.com, we don't take government money. So we circled up with our CPA to determine in the Paycheck Protection Program that came out of the CARES Act. This was the $600 billion to help small businesses across the country. We wanted to know if we did apply for that, how much could we get? And our CPA told us we could get $300,000 on a forgivable loan. We didn't even apply. We reject all government money. That would compromise our mission. We're the watchdogs. We can't be funded by government.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Any other highlighted things that you've found in the CARES Act that you want to talk about?
Well, I did get the bill that passed got marginally better. If you remember, there was a figure of $200 million for sustainable aircraft jet fuel that Nancy Pelosi wanted in that bill.
Yeah.
Well, we took a look at the language that she proposed, and it wasn't $200 million. It was $200 million a year for 6 years. It was $1.2 billion. McConnell did strip all of that from the bill that passed. So that's actually good news.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so I assume you're now watching the new bill that's moving through.
Well, that's, we've been really focused on the bailout of the states. So,
And that's what's going through now. Is that the bill that's happening now, the bailout of the states?
Yeah, in part, 1/6 of that bill, $500 billion out of $3 trillion would go to bail out the 50 states, including California, Illinois, and New York.
I haven't been watching that very closely. Is some of it infrastructure? I know that there was a big push to get some infrastructure stuff going.
Well, I don't think, if there's infrastructure in there, there wouldn't be enough. I think there's a lot of other things in there, but it does lack an emphasis on infrastructure, that's for sure, which is really interesting. I would have thought that instead of this bill for $3 trillion, that they would have come back on a bipartisan basis with an infrastructure bill.
Yeah.
at least at the end of the day, the taxpayers would be getting a paved road or a bridge for the money. And I think that would have more bipartisan appeal than what was proposed in the House.
Yeah, to throw, if we're going to print the money, let's print it in some kind of assets. Let's get it into assets, which roads, bridges, sewer systems, all sorts of stuff that we need. We know we need repairs in the U.S. if we're going to do it. And also we need people to work potentially. I think we're going to have a serious problem with the business community coming back. I think that we've got a real problem with unemployment that's going to last a while. So if we're going to spend money and we're going to put people to work, putting them to work to fix up the things that's going around in the country, infrastructure would be smart.
Absolutely. And that harkens us back to the Great Depression and the jobs programs that were put in place to put money in the pockets of regular people all across the country. Yeah. Look, right now, Sean, I mean, money is losing its meaning to people. It's losing its value. On Capitol Hill, Republicans and Democrats, they're all Paul Krugman economists right now. If you remember in 2012, the liberal economist Paul Krugman on the editorial page of the New York Times advocated the printing of $1 trillion platinum coin. He just said, print the platinum coin for $1 trillion, and he encouraged the Obama administration to then spend it. Well, that's what's going on. This bipartisan Congress, signed by the president, the Republican president, President Trump, they're printing Paul Krugman's $1 trillion coins, and they're using this virus as a crisis to get it done.
Yeah, what we do with this kind of debt looks like another 3 trillion. What we have this year, potentially 6, 7. We're not even done. We've only been into this 2.5 months, 2 months. I mean, what are we going to have, a 7 trillion add to the national debt in 1 year? 8 trillion. I mean, it's so outrageous that, first of all, $1 trillion is so much money that you can't even conceive of the amount of money. And it doesn't seem to affect us. That's the other thing, Adam, that bothers me, and that I've been arguing about this for so long, but it's hard to argue it because, well, great. Why not print it? It doesn't seem to affect, you can't feel it. There's not like a giant locust swarm that hits your house every time it's printed. Nothing really seems to affect us. So it's like, well, great. What's the problem? And in that moment when it is a problem, similar to what happened on the coronavirus, all of a sudden you're going along normal. I have a business where we build props and sets and things like that for the trade show industry and whatnot. And Disneyland, it went away. I mean, evaporation. We were having these projects going through, and all of a sudden they just one after the other. It was like it just went poof up in the air. And so it's like so the coronavirus thing starts hitting, and now you're in the middle of it. You're like, what the heck am I supposed to do as everything shuts down? It's going to be the similar thing, in my opinion, when we get to this debt cliff, whatever it is going to be. We're going to be on the other side of it, and we're going to go, oh, maybe we shouldn't have overspent so much over the last 200 years, really. And how we're going to fix that backing up. Now you're on the other side of it. It's kind of like when the housing market dropped in 2008 and 9. When it was coming down, there's nothing you can do. You can't sell your house unless you're going to drop 100 or 200 or whatever amount off your house. So once you're over that cliff, it's difficult to fix. And I just don't know. I don't know where this goes. It really is concerning.
So I don't fault anybody in the private sector for taking the bailout money. We're not going to do it at openthebooks.com because our mission's different. We hold them accountable. We can't take government money, but they shut you down. They shut down. We're into uncharted waters because never before have they shut down an economy like what they did. And it's like eminent domain. If a local government comes in and says they're going to take your house and build a road over the top of it, they owe you for the house. Yeah. They shut you down. They took your business. They put you in lockdown. So they do owe you compensation. Now, I think that compensation, that first $3 trillion is out the door. We have to now, as we reopen the economy, we have to let this money play out, and we have to see where we stand at the end of the day. We don't want to shoot all our bullets right now. What if this virus has the second leg in the fall and the winter, right? So you don't want to spend all the money now. You don't want to rack up
Exactly.
all the debt now. You want to hold something in reserve.
Well, your point of the government owes, quote unquote, owes me. The problem with that I think people miss is it's our money coming back to us. It's, it's not like I have damage from a neighbor and he owes me. This is the government, which I'm funding. So that's the frustration is okay, I'm going to ask for that, but it's coming from me. It's very
Well,
bizarre.
I think we have to learn, and we got to look around the world for beta test examples of policy that work better than ours.
Yeah.
Uh, and we need to quickly learn from best practices. And probably best practice is not locking down the world's greatest engine for prosperity ever created.
Yeah, there's got to be a better way. I've argued that we could have done this differently to protect people. This is, and here's my thing with our politicians. We elect them, and this is a tough situation. But yeah, it's a tough situation. You're elected. It's your job. If you can't handle it, get out and we'll get someone else in. How do we protect the people, yet at the same time protect the people as far as business goes too? So it can't just be we're going to save lives and just destroy everything else. So that has been very frustrating. I mean, we're getting into other area that isn't really your ballywick, but I just get frustrated with this.
And Sean, I do want to put the sheer amount of money that we're throwing at this virus in context to the Great Recession that happened in 2008 and 2009 on the housing crisis. What got everybody so upset on the right was a $700 billion TARP bill that was later during the Obama administration scaled back to $500 billion, okay? $500 billion. Right. And so the virus bailout at $3 trillion already, and the House Democrats want to add another $3 trillion for a total of $6 trillion. I mean, this is uncharted federal spending. This is uncharted, stimulus and bailout money, the likes that nobody has ever seen in all of world history.
Yeah, and the sad part is, even if we're right, even if ever all of our, oh my gosh, this is going to be dangerous, oh my gosh, what's going to happen to the country by doing this? The problem I have with being right is it means that it's happened, and I don't want to be right on this, but I don't see any other way out of it. This is going to, at some point, come home to roost, and I'm not sure if it's asset prices that are going crazy, which have already happened from the last amount of money that got dished out after the 2008 and 9. You have valuations of companies now over trillions of dollars. You have Jeff Bezos, 130 billion, even after divorce. I mean, you have all in housing prices. I mean, you have all this rising, and then you have a huge swath of the economy. People don't own anything. If you don't own assets and you're still in your job, they're being left behind. So, I mean, this is, there's going to be ramifications from this, but we digress. I digress. So I know I've probably run you over. I'll give you a last word here in a second, but I feel I've probably run over our time. I want to wrap up. I love what you're doing. I love the fact that you've stepped up and are exposing the bright, what do you call it? The bright hot, the light that makes the rat scurry. I love it. So we'll have you back on again. But again, last words from you today anyway.
Well, Sean, thanks for having me on. We're going to continue to focus the white hot spotlight so regular people can follow the money and hold those politicians accountable for tax and spend decisions. People can get started on our website at openthebooks.com.
Awesome. Always happy to talk to you, Adam. We'll talk to you the next time. Be safe out there. All right.
Sounds great, Sean. Thank you.
Well, Adam Andrzejewski, love these guys, love what he's doing. Love what the Edgar County watchdog guys are doing. The Freedom of Information Act is an incredibly, incredibly powerful tool that anyone, you at home, if there's something going on with a local district, a park board, a school board, anything governmental, you can, and I think it may vary from location. You can ask them. Email the city, email that board, just ask. I would like to see the expenditures in detail from last year. I would like to see the minutes. Now, ideally, you're doing it because you have some issue, and there's plenty of them out there. But if you suspect that some politician is awarding contracts to himself, his own business, or his friends. You can pull these documents. This is powerful. I'm telling you that you start exposing just plain old truth. It doesn't, and stay away from politics. Just stay out of it. You just show truth. If they're breaking the law, give them an opportunity to fix that so that they understand what the law is. Maybe they didn't understand what it was, and they can fix it and go forward. But if they don't fix it, if they run, then, why should they be there anyway? So you can look back at the show, listen to the show that I have at Schomburg.net. It was just a week or two ago. It talks about two guys armed with truth, caused 400 officials to flee. Incredible interview. And I also have other interviews with Adam on there from Open the Books. And you can write me at heysean@schomburg.net. We are in unprecedented times. I am very concerned about the economy. I'm concerned about losing half of our restaurants and half of our small businesses. I hope that we don't. They're certainly projecting that potentially we have a surge in spending coming. I hope so. They've spent enough money that it's very possible, but we don't know what's happening with the deal is with the virus is one thing. Whether you think the virus is important, dangerous, doesn't even matter. If the government thinks it's dangerous and they start shutting things down, it affects you. It's not like we have to have this philosophical discussion or any discussion about what you think about the virus. It's the reaction from our government, because it is the most powerful thing in the country. And all of a sudden in my business, we had jobs. It wasn't so much they shut us down. It was that the businesses that we had contracts with no longer were going to do events, no longer going to Disneyland's not open right now. So it's not like we got shut down. It was just that everybody was realizing that nothing is going to be open. So why are we going to spend money? So that's what happened. So it will come back eventually. It's just how long. All right. That's my show for you today. Thank you very much for listening, and please take care of yourself, and talk to you the next time. Bye-bye.